on some of the fun from the last section. So remember we were talking about global scale sustainability, okay? This is the video that even when you graduate, you're gonna go, CJ, I remember the wombat. So all you have to do is Google wombat, and this guy comes up. It's the globalcommunity.org. It's a large-scale sustainability organization. Oh, it's not playing the volume.
Oh, down at the bottom right, where the sound thing is.
Let's go all the way up, see where we're at.
Yo, listen up. This is your home. It's the only one you got. This place is pretty, but you can't live there. You can't even get there. So I repeat, this is your home. It's the only one you got. Cherish it, protect it. It's the only one you're gonna get. These guys, they're your neighbors. They ain't going away. They ain't leaving. You have to get along with them. So you have to learn to share. You have to get along. You have to learn to get along. Because they are your neighbors. They're not going away. Okay, all this stuff, the animals, the waters, the sky, the ground, the bugs, the fish, the tacos, the people, they're all connected. Everything is connected. They all depend on one another. If you ignore that, you're doomed. Repeat, doomed. Okay, so listen up. It's all one. Not two worlds, not three, one. Just one. So get it in gear. Remember, all is one. Okay? Hit it.
It's a wombat. You know, and what he tries to do with humor is certainly a way to get through to people. But everything's connected. I would love to play this for the new administration. Okay, I'll stop talking.
Yeah.
It's all connected. The people are connected. And if there's anything that we know in this new world, is we're all connected and things are happening all the time that are intersectional. You heard that phrase, that word being used these days, intersectional? Anyone doing like social justice work? When you talk about intersectionality, that means everything's connected. You know, I work on the intersection of my feminism and my love for the earth. What else? My social justice, equality for all of those things for me intersect. So I want you to be thinking about what's the intersectionality that you come at this from. Some people come at it from a place of religious faith. I believe that the world was created by the Creator, and as such, I will work to protect it. We're seeing more and more Christian organizations that are coming out for environmental causes. Woohoo! I love that. Because if you believe that God created the earth, then you should work to protect it. Come on, help me. You know, so look at those intersectionalities for yourself to see where those things arise. Maryland Genuine Progress Indicator. I just want to say we have a Republican governor. I said I wasn't going to talk about politics. He didn't make him take this down. This is one of Martin O'Malley's signature things. It's still up on the website. So either he doesn't know about it, or he's being reasonable and saying this is a good thing. And I would encourage you to just kind of poke around in here. Here's the calculator. So you get to put in different parameters and it calculates different values. The takeaway from this is there's more than one way to measure progress. People want to measure progress, but gross domestic product is not the best way to do that. Okay, let's go. Let's do it this way. How about that? Let's not get fancy. Bless you. Okay. So now we're going to talk our friend Cradle to Cradle. And I put these questions out ahead of time because I really hope that while you were reading the book, you were thinking about these questions and you know what it kind of meant to you to have this. So what struck you most about the book? What did you learn that you didn't know before?
Well, I'll start with, well, I'll answer both. What struck me most about the book, it was just a really well-researched what I didn't know before was the section on, the downsides of recycling. You know, I just really, that hasn't really been well articulated.
And it's disheartening a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, all the things
Very.
that we've been taught to do, and it's like, these are not really helpful.
And I think his point is not helpful enough.
Yeah.
When I was in grad school in 1990 something, we had a guy come in and say that recycling paper is the biggest waste of energy there ever was. It's so stupid, we shouldn't do it. And of course, you know, this was 20 years ago, so for me, I'm all, you know, in the front row going, what are you talking about? This is green, this is stuff, you know, this is crazy. And he did very well researched, and he said, you know, paper is heavy. It takes gasoline to get it from where it's being used to where it's being recycled. There's a place in West Virginia that recycles cardboard. Well, what's the cost of getting that from Northern Virginia to Western Virginia? You know, I mean, there's costs associated with this stuff. But what he didn't do, and we kind of argued about this, was have you calculated the other side of the equation? How many trees have to be cut down? Let's say we bagged paper recycling. Ah, God, I'm full of puns today. Get it? We bagged paper. Come on, people. It's the after lunch sludge. So we bagged paper recycling. What's the effect on the forest? All of a sudden, you know, we're clearing twice as much as what we were clearing before. There's gasoline affected, you know, with that. I mean, these kind of economic arguments to me are not apples to apples comparisons because we've never calculated the full cost. You know, do we calculate the full cost of an apple that gets to you, that you pay, what, 25 cents for? No, because there's pesticides, mostly, that have to go into anything in the prunus genus, all the fruit trees. A friend of mine calls it the yummy plant family because bugs love all the plants, you know, so to grow apples usually involves pesticides or something. So did we calculate into that cost of that apple the reduction in honeybee populations, the reduction in the soil value and its ability to, you know, grow new trees? We don't. So that equation is still unbalanced. Right. Anybody else, what struck you the most? Yeah, Lisa and then Carolyn.
Well, I had two different opinions on this book. The first thing I really liked was figuring out what cradle to cradle meant. Because like you said, I'm more familiar with reuse, recycle, whatever, but not cradle to cradle, and I'm still struggling with that. So that was interesting, if I could just pull that out of this and have them concentrate on that, I'd be really happy with this book. What I'm struggling with is having to go through a lot of opinion where, to me, they're unsupported opinions. And so when you were talking about what is the scientific basis for some of these things, what are the economic factors involved in these things, that's what attracts me. And I think for him, there were a lot of statements in there that I would like to believe, but I could just see a whole host of people countering them. And if I'm having to stand up and making a case for something, I'm going to need to know all those other facts. And the references used to quote other opinions. So I had a little problem with kind of the clarion call approach versus the give me something I can use with my immediate needs. If you are looking for kind of the overall philosophy, which is what this is, then it's a good intro. I learned a lot of the history. But I think that's my good and bad on the book.
And you know what's great about that is that you are identifying what you need. You were reading the book and you were like, well, I'm not getting what I need, but now you're saying, I know what I need. You know, it's like you don't know what you need until you know what you need. Am I double speaking here?
Right.
And for you reading it going, well, you know, that's still an opinion, and I think that's an opinion. So now you're going, now you know where you want to explore more. And that's self-awareness is
Some
a
of the
good
later
positive.
readings actually did that.
Yeah,
that
so
was
good.
I wanted those later
You always do
readings.
the early ones to get you thinking and questioning. Carolyn had a thought, and then we'll go to Michelle.
I thought that the author made a radical suggestion that I had never heard before. He seemed to me to suggest that design is a theory of change, that design can bring about some of these desired conditions. And all the work that I've done in public education for the past 25 years, the theory of change has been centered on policy. If the policy is this, then the change will happen. Advocacy has been another theory of change that we've used, and science has been also research-based practices and approaches. But education has never considered design as a way to bring about change, so that was a totally new idea.
That's a really good point.
All right, if you're late for class, you get locked out. There we go. I like that, yeah. How do you get to that place of talking about a design that could change something?
Well, I think design has implications for how to, and honestly, I think some of the failures in education have been because policy has suggested or mandated things that the majority of teachers literally don't know how to do. But if education had focused more on, in that case, instructional design, that it might have become more concrete and specific to the very people who were going to bring about the desired change. And I can see from our other readings that policy, advocacy, and science are also a part of this world, but it has this additional element that involves creativity and specification of how, that I think is, to me it was radical. I'd never considered or heard it before. You know, and you reach a certain age and then there aren't that many things that you've never really heard before.
I like your analysis very much, that in education we haven't thought about design as a tool to educate. Certainly demonstration projects can be just huge. You know, an elementary school that puts in, you know, a food garden and then gets 20 visits from other schools going, how do we do that? That's how change happens, is, you know, showing people that it can be done. And part of what we're going to talk about is ongoing maintenance, and that's one of my kind of pet peeves, is we don't plan for this ongoing maintenance that these natural systems are going to need. You know, it's like, oh, we did this natural system, boom, now we walk away from it and nature is going to take over. Well, we know that's not true. Even in the most, you know, greenest green bioretention area or whatever, it's still going to need to have some maintenance done to it. And we were next with
Yeah,
Michelle.
I had something to say, I think I remember, but I want to respond to Carolyn for a second. Carolyn, right? Which is interesting to hear you say that, because architects all think that we can change the world through design. I thought, wow, you ever, because I went through architecture school, like, what about the policy, what about, you know, everything else that you need to support it, but I think it's a combination, but that's interesting, to hear you say that, and, you know, to make the jump also from design of the physical structure, which architects do think we can change the world via, but also the more specified design of how to, you know, education programs or whatever that's about. But I guess to answer what struck me most about the book and what I learned I didn't know before, what it made me think about was unintended consequences. Everything from recycling, you know, good intentions may not always result in good, not always end in good results because of unintended consequences, and the importance of assessing the risks with anything you do to identify those. I think that sometimes in the, certainly for me, I would imagine for others, in the excitement about a new idea or effectuating some change, you just sort of ride that idea without opening yourself up to looking at the full breadth of unintended consequences. And, you know, I think in both books, I guess because I'm not a historian, I really didn't know that much about the Industrial Revolution and its impact on the ability to execute some of the warmongering World War too, and I thought that was a really interesting discussion, and also for me fell into the category of unintended consequences. I also loved reading about the physical book. I read about it and I thought, oh wow, and I like tried to tear a page and, you know, it was really fun.
Well, that was one of the things that I asked about, you know, well, what struck you the most about the book is its physicality.
Yeah.
You know, this is recyclable. Most books are not. And just how it feels and the pages, I just love it. It's heavier than a book its size would normally be, and they haven't quite
Bless you.
Thank you. They've written another book, and it's a follow-up. I haven't read it yet, but they were like, we tried to design something different, and it didn't really work. Because people aren't set up, recyclers aren't set up to take this kind of thing, and it didn't catch on. In part, I think, because it's heavier. So here was something where they tried to design to show their desired outcome, and it wasn't quite what they had hoped.
Well, also, if the books are all heavier, then it's going to take more gasoline and more energy to transport all of the books. If
Yes.
you're going to maintain the same amount of books. So it does also have negative consequences.
Right,
If it is more
unintended
recycled.
consequences.
So,
And do you think we're going to have physical books in the future? What do you think?
I think so.
Christine, yes?
I think so.
Until a certain generation.
Well, I was thinking about my mother because she just passed away this September, and you know it's been a difficult couple of months. But one of the things we found in her apartment was a log of all the books she had read since like 2002. There are hundreds of books in here, and you know, it's like, oh, she was such an avid reader, and several times we said, can we get you a Nook or something to read electronically? And she said, no, it's a relationship. I was, I'm not a big reader, especially not of books, and I was like, huh? And she explained it to me. She's like, you turn the pages, it's a physical thing. And what's funny to me is oftentimes what's old becomes new again. So my opinion is I don't think books will ever go away. And you know, there's, my spouse is into this, the smell of old books.
Well, that one will.
That will never go away.
Well, no, I mean, the cradle won't smell like this.
Oh, it won't smell, right. And that's part of the experience is, you know, that, so anyway, that's interesting. Oh. So, anything else that you learned that you didn't know? Here and then here.
I was just going to make maybe three quick comments. First of all, I was really impressed when I walked in that Carolyn went to the library to get her books. And I thought, what a
jump back, Jack.
phenomenal way of, you know, this whole sustainability is, you know, reusing all this, right? Because honestly, I'm really honest, I'm probably going to kick me out of your class. I didn't like this book at all. I didn't, but I'm liking it now because what other people got from it, I didn't get from it, and what I got from it was like bad. They're just all really bad people. Why, you know?
We're awful.
Awful people, and I was like getting depressed. So I was really happy when I could pick up this book because I was like, oh, I like this book. But the comments from here were really very interesting, very good. So, okay, so I kind of like it. But I still wish I had gone to the library to get it out. I would get it better about it.
Nobody's done that before, but you know, I'm going to have to get gold stars or something, because you do get a gold star for...
Well, gold star to the Arlington County Library for
having
having
it.
it.
Right.
Yeah, and then that's their new book.
It is,
Show the new book.
on regular paper.
The Upcycle. On regular paper, yeah. And in that book, they kind of admit that it was an experiment, and you never change design if you don't try an experiment. Yeah. I'm sorry, she had the floor.
well, for future classes, I actually got mine from the GW libraries. So they're available.
They're available
There's
there,
multiple copies, and it's not just George Washington's library. They are connected with all the other DC schools. So there's actually like multiple copies of these available, so you can either get them and pick them up at the library, or they can mail them to you. So.
Sustainable
And you can return them
solution.
here, so you can just, yeah, you can return them in this building
Oh,
and
thank
then,
you for
yep.
coming.
So
Wow,
if you want to check out,
that's
I've avoided buying any books
Don't even
so
use
far.
gas.
All right, she's avoided buying any books so
But
far.
I didn't like the book at all either. I thought, I mean, I think I felt like I already knew a lot of the, like, this is why everything is horrible kind of stuff, and I was just like, I know this, now tell me how to improve upon this and do better, and where is the process to improve these things? And he kind of got there towards the end,
Yeah.
but I still felt like there wasn't enough of it.
Well, you didn't read the whole, did you read the whole book?
I didn't read the whole book, I just read
Yeah.
the, like, first 9
He gets
pages
into
of
more
it.
answers.
So, yeah,
later,
I'm assuming it's in there, but I just felt like he belabored the point, and I was just kind of like, I'm really done with this. Like, the first chapter, I was like, ugh, I like don't want to read this at all. The second chapter kind of got a little better. The third chapter, I was like, okay, because the third chapter is kind of when he starts talking about the effectiveness versus efficiency idea, and that I had never really thought about, so I really liked that part of it. And how he talked about the cherry blossom tree and how, you know, it doesn't only produce one seed so that it can have a future tree, it produces as many and all the nutrients and everything, all the waste is equal to food or equal
Right,
to,
right,
and
for
that
someone.
kind of good stuff about it.
Making those nature comparisons,
Mhm.
you know, is great. I like the effective versus efficient. I've worked with some planners who are very effective, but they are not efficient at all. They, you know, stay up till midnight the night before a presentation is done, and then nobody gets to review it before they, you know, they go in front of the planning board, and then you're like, oh crap, what's gonna happen? And okay, well, they're effective, but it's not efficient. And when, you know, they're talking about, you gotta have both, and how those work together. And a lot of that is process oriented. I have had the unwelcome opportunity to completely rewrite the processes of 3 different agencies. When I first got to the Parks Department in Fairfax, there was a reduction in force, so they get rid of all the environmental jobs first. Can't manage the budget, get rid of all the arborists. That's what they did. So I ended up in the Parks Department not knowing what I was doing. I was labeled a landscape architect. I said, I can't wear that label, I am not a landscape architect. They're like, no, that's your slot. Well, luckily, our director had worked for the National Park Service, and he was a planner. And that's how I got into the planning profession, actually, was I got fired from a job. I got let go because of a budget cut. And that's how I got into planning. It was the best thing that ever happened. But he said, okay, CJ, I want you to document the entire park planning and design and construction process. Map it out. This would have been 1990. So I had a very small Mac that the whole thing was like this big, and a monochrome screen, and I learned how to use Visio software, which is actually not a bad software, but it's very old, to do a flow chart. And I did a flow chart that was 42 feet long that described, so I was new to the agency, so I went around and interviewed everybody in the process, right? For one, to learn it myself, but to be able to flow chart. 42 feet long. And then I gave each division a different color pen to, you know, write what you think the process is. We're doing the existing process. And this guy was so smart. I didn't know where we were going at that point. 1990, I was, what, 30 years old. I didn't know what was going on. He did. We could not get those people to agree on what the existing process was. They wrote all over it. They said, no, this happens over here, and this happens over here. Wrote all over the wall. And what did the guy do? Walked in and he said, look at how screwed up this is. He wanted to make a major shift in the process of how they did park planning. But he couldn't do it until he got them to admit that the existing process was so broken So that took me like 4 months on that project. And then we get done and I'm like, but you're not gonna use anything I did! I mapped out this whole thing, it's so great! And he's like, nope, wad it all up, recycle it, we're starting over. Everything they did was driven by how many ball fields could they put on a piece of property. That was how they designed and built parks. He said, we can't do it that way. We're land stewards. What we should be doing is looking at a piece of property and doing a management plan for how we would manage it, not how we would develop it. Developing is just one piece of a whole group of things you could do. You could leave a piece of property alone. You could put trails in it. You could build ball fields if you got flat spots and enough money. So you see what I mean? The process was broken. And he couldn't get at it any other way than to show and demonstrate just how broken that process was. So many of these things are, as you say, process oriented. Okay, so how did we get to this single-use mentality? Baby boomers, lots of resources, plenty of money, no restrictions. What were companies doing? Car companies especially.
Great big cars used a lot of gas.
That were they designed to last a long time? No. Planned obsolescence.
Right.
Great phrase. They plan for their product. Oh, who's better at this than Apple?
Yeah.
Right. Manufacturers of women's nylons, I'm just
Oh,
saying.
I know.
Okay. Planned obsolescence.
Really, one guy here.
If you're still wearing pantyhose, they don't last very long. Yeah. Yeah. They design things to be out of date almost as soon as you get them. I didn't get an iPhone until they were at 6. Because I was like, my BlackBerry still works. I don't get pictures on it, but it still works. Yeah, that planned obsolescence is killing us. We're drowning in electronics. Thank goodness people are starting to recycle that stuff. But the plastic is, so much of these is plastic. That's a one-time. And what happens with plastic when you recycle it? What happens?
Mixed chemicals.
You get mixed chemicals.
It goes to lower quality plastic.
Yes, it goes to lower quality plastic. So it's downcycling, it's not recycling.
That's one thing, he was talking about upcycling and how, like, if the ideal book, they would recycle the paper to make it another book, but I didn't understand how that would be upcycling, because you're not making something better, you're making the same quality thing.
Yeah, I don't think I would call that upcycling.
So I don't, that's
Yeah.
what I got confused about when he called that upcycling.
And the difficulty with upcycling is there's still energy
Yeah. So
that
it's like
is
then
an input.
you're not, I just didn't understand how you could make it a better product when you're using the same materials. And ideally, you want to make the same quality that you could the first time around.
Yeah, and paper even loses some of its
Yeah.
quality over time as it's recycled time and again. Yeah, and one other little word that we haven't said yet that has led to this paradigm starts with G. Greed. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Greed. It's all about making money. How fast can we get products out to people, have them trash it, so they have to buy another one, and buy another one, and buy another one. I've been humidifier shopping lately. I've lived in this area for 30 plus years. Y'all don't know, you complain about the humidity, enjoy it. My skin is like peeling away, it's so dry up there. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a humidifier. It was, my dog finally was having a coughing problem because it was so dry. We took her to the vet, oh, is it dry in your house? I'm like, yes. So I had to get a humidifier for my dog. I didn't get it for me, but I got it for my dog. So I've been shopping humidifiers. This one comes in the mail, I paid $200 for it, it's ultrasonic, it'll do warm as well as cool mist, all this stuff. I pull it out and it weighs nothing. And I'm like, you know, for $200, I hope something a little more substantial, you know. And it works fine, but I'm just like, ugh, you know, really? Is this what I have to do? And of course, my friend who's post-computer, he's, you know, do everything old-fashioned ways. He's like, why don't you put a big pot on top of your wood stove? Because we heat with wood. It's nice. We heat with wood and we have solar panels. So our input of energy is very low. And I'm like, that doesn't do anything, you know? So we get these products, I guess I'm kind of railing on them now, that they're just crap after a couple of years. I just keep going through humidifiers and I don't want to throw this away. The fan still works, but it doesn't, yeah. Crazy. Okay. What type of thinking is needed to make such a large cultural shift? What type of thinking, whose thinking do we need to change? How do you change a greed mentality? That's a tough one. Teach them how to make money doing it. How to make money doing it. Right? So if you're trying to, here's an example. So I got to present this project to the Prince George's Planning Board, and they're pretty green, but you know, they see developers every day, and that's economic engine for the county, and you know, even a new McDonald's they get excited about if it's in a neighborhood that hasn't had any new development in decades. So I was going to present this, and I'm like, well, what are they going to want to know about? How am I going to sell this to them, right? Talked about green jobs. I had an intern anticipating that. I had an intern do a whole case studies on green jobs that came to communities. A lot of it's around urban agriculture, but you know, that's how you sell these things. How do you convince people that these are the right things to do? And I also mentioned the Chamber of Commerce. We had gone to the Chamber of Commerce and said, hey, do you know about this project? Because this can support what you want to do around green jobs. Now these are policies that talk about, you know, we're going to protect corridors, we're going to protect green areas, we're going to have better water quality. All they heard was the green jobs. The whole project moved forward because we had done our homework around the economics. There is so much good environmental and social things in here, they didn't even see that. So I went in selling the economic side of it. So I think that's how we turn this around, is turn the greed back on them and say, you can make money doing this. Prince George's County has more land zoned for retail and warehouse than any other county in the region. It's not good because investors look at that and go, oh, you got all this vacant land, da, 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 da. I would look at it and go, we should start building solar panels. That's what we should do. We're hooked up to all these highways. Why aren't we doing stuff like that? So you got to hook them into what can change that approach. So if you didn't have, so you're saying, oh, I wish I'd had, everybody was saying, I wish we'd had tools. What tools would you use to convince others to shift if you needed to?
Tool. One thing that strikes me when I read that question is, I think that especially people who are younger now, 30 years old or so, are much more tuned into their experiences in life than things. And demonstrating the link between their ability to have those experiences they want and having a more sustainable approach. And you're not going to be able to go hiking up that mountain and you know, breathe clean air or take your bike to work and not have asthma if you don't do all the things that will lead to a cleaner environment.
Okay.
So I think building on their desire for experience.
Okay. That's a good strategy. What research did you not see in the book that you would have liked to have had? You know, was there something like that?
Like, I think some of the things would be like the products that are the best to buy are the ones that are most efficient and effective. Just kind of having it, or like how to ask and demand for those products from providers, like manufacturers. It's kind of like what you could do on a day-to-day basis, because obviously the products that we're currently buying are not good for us. They're releasing chemicals in our homes and everything. So what can we do in demand, and how can we do that?
I think it's shifting, and yes, all those tools would be helpful. I'll go back to my lunch, not very sustainable lunch, but these used to be styrofoam. And then what did we do as a culture? We said, oh, styrofoam. It's banned in Montgomery County, right?
It's banned in DC too.
Banned in DC?
Except.
You can't use styrofoam. And that's a